Welcome to Veterans Speak. Today we reveal a hidden battle veterans face after service, finding a home with a VASH housing voucher. Veterans return home, hopeful, holding a voucher, a symbol of their sacrifice and a promise of stability. But optimism quickly fades. At leasing offices, they're told, "We don't accept vouchers here." The support they earned is denied, not by policy, but by landlords' choices. The key in their hand unlocks nothing. This isn't rare. It's a widespread, silent discrimination that leaves veterans stranded, their service disregarded. The door to opportunity remains closed, and the promise of a new beginning is shattered. This isn't about bad credit. It's about systemic prejudice. Landlords and property managers quietly block veterans with vouchers, pushing them to the margins. There's no federal law protecting source of income, so veterans are rejected for how they pay, not who they are. For veterans of color, the burden is even heavier, facing both racial and income discrimination. Our systems fail those they're meant to protect. The result, a silent, devastating epidemic of exclusion. Today, we call on the community, especially the church, to stand in the gap and open doors for our veterans. The VASH voucher is meant to be a lifeline, a promise of stability for veterans facing homelessness. It's backed by the VA and HUD, combining rental assistance with support services. Veterans work hard to qualify, believing this paper will open doors to safe, affordable homes. But when the search begins, reality hits. The voucher often singles them out for rejection. The promise of support collides with a market unwilling to accept it. Veterans are left holding hope on paper, but facing closed doors in real life. The voucher's value is tied to fair market rent, but rents rise faster than the system adjusts. Veterans find few, if any, homes within voucher limits. Most are priced out or forced into unsafe neighborhoods. The gap between what the voucher covers and actual rent is often insurmountable. The search becomes desperate, demoralizing, and often fruitless. Veterans are approved for help, yet can't access decent housing. The math doesn't add up, and veterans pay the price. Even when the math works, bureaucracy creates new barriers. Landlords fear red tape, delayed payments, and slow inspections, so they reject voucher holders. Veterans race against time, juggling paperwork and pleading with landlords and agencies. Administrative delays mean apartments slip away to faster applicants. The system meant to help becomes a web of obstacles. Veterans are left waiting, the promise of support tangled in inefficiency. The polite denials, while seemingly innocuous, build a formidable wall, leaving veterans feeling isolated, misunderstood, and profoundly unwelcomed in their own country.
One veteran confessed he started lying on initial phone calls, hoping to just get a foot in the door before revealing his payment source, a tactic that only led to more painful and direct rejections.
The cumulative effect of this constant denial is emotionally corrosive. It erodes a veteran's sense of self-worth and replaces hope with a weary cynicism. They start their search feeling empowered by the support they have earned, but after weeks of rejection, they feel stigmatized by it. The voucher, once a symbol of a promise, becomes a mark of otherness, something to be hidden or apologized for.
A former Navy SEAL shared his story of being turned down for 5 different apartments in a single week. He had an impeccable service record, no criminal history, and glowing references. Yet the moment the voucher was mentioned, the conversation ended. He was told he was a risk, a label he could not comprehend. He had managed high-stakes operations in the most dangerous environments in the world, yet a property manager in a quiet suburb saw him as too risky to rent an apartment to. The polite excuse could not hide the sting of being deemed untrustworthy by the very society he had protected.
These rejections are not just about a business transaction, they are deeply invalidating. Veterans are told they are being turned away because of the voucher, but it is impossible not to internalize the message as a rejection of themselves. They begin to wonder, what is wrong with me? Am I not a worthy tenant?
A Marine Corps veteran, a woman who served as a mechanic for a decade, described the sinking feeling in her stomach every time she had to disclose her reliance on the voucher. She explained how she would try to present it as a positive, emphasizing the reliability of a government-backed payment. But the response was almost always the same. Landlords would cite company policy, a preference for market-rate tenants, or vague concerns about program requirements. Each rejection felt like a personal failure, chipping away at the dignity and pride she had fought so hard to maintain through her service and her subsequent struggles. The polite but firm no became the soundtrack to her housing search.
This experience is repeated in leasing offices and over phone lines across the country. veterans learn to brace themselves for the inevitable question about their source of income.
An Army veteran, a man who led a platoon in combat, recounts visiting a pristine apartment complex he was excited to show his family. He met the leasing agent, who was warm and welcoming until the moment he mentioned his voucher. The agent's demeanor shifted instantly, the welcoming smile tightening into a mask of professional regret. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but we are not currently participating in that program." The door, which had seemed so open just moments before, was gently but firmly closed in his face. It was a polite rejection, but it felt no less like a judgment.
The search for housing for most people is already a stressful experience. For a veteran holding a voucher, however, it transforms into a series of deeply personal and honestly demoralizing encounters. The rejection is rarely overt or aggressive. It is often delivered with a polite smile, a soft tone, and a scripted apology that does little to cushion the blow. This double standard is the unspoken reality at the intersection of race and poverty. While a white veteran with a voucher faces significant hurdles, a black veteran with the same voucher is often presumed to be a problem tenant before they even fill out an application. The polite rejection they receive is weighted with generations of systemic inequality. It is a quiet confirmation of their deepest fears, that in the eyes of some, they are seen not as a hero who served, but as a risk to be managed, a stereotype to be avoided. This silent, layered discrimination is one of the most shameful aspects of this crisis, a direct contradiction to the ideals of equality and justice that our military is sworn to defend.
An older Black Army veteran, who served in Vietnam, described the experience as a painful echo of the past. "I fought for this country when it didn't even see me as a full man," he said. "To come home and still be fighting for a decent place to live because of the color of my skin? It tells me that some things haven't changed nearly as much as we pretend they have."
This is not an isolated incident. It is a painful pattern confirmed by housing audits and personal testimonies. The discrimination is subtle, often carried out through unspoken cues and coded language. A black veteran may be subjected to more rigorous credit checks, asked for more documentation, or told about stricter income requirements than a white applicant. Landlords might claim a unit has just been rented, only for the listing to remain active online for weeks. This practice, known as steering, also pushes minority veterans toward less desirable, segregated neighborhoods, even when they have the means and the desire to live elsewhere. They are fighting not only the stigma of the voucher, but also the stubborn legacy of racial bias in housing that has persisted for generations. The emotional toll of this dual discrimination is immense. It adds a layer of deep-seated historical injustice to the immediate sting of rejection. For a black veteran who served a country that has not always served them back with equity, being denied housing feels like a profound betrayal. It reinforces a narrative that their service and sacrifice are valued less, that their full rights as citizens are conditional.
A Black Air Force veteran shared his experience of calling a property manager about a listing he saw online. Over the phone, when he inquired about the apartment and mentioned he was a veteran with a housing voucher, he was told there was a long waiting list and it was unlikely anything would open up for months. Suspicious, he asked a white friend from his support group to call the same number an hour later. His friend, who did not mention a voucher, was told a unit was available immediately and was invited to tour it that same afternoon.
The wall of discrimination becomes demonstrably higher and more impenetrable for veterans of color. For black veterans in particular, the polite rejection often conceals a deeper, more insidious bias. The source of income discrimination they face is frequently compounded by racial prejudice, creating a double burden that is nearly impossible to overcome.
The fight for a home becomes intertwined with the larger fight for racial justice and true equality. We're confronting not just an individual landlord's prejudice, but the enduring legacy of a system that has too often offered us a key that was never intended to fit the lock. This historical echo makes the rejection all the more devastating, turning a personal struggle into a confrontation with the nation's unresolved past.
This is not just a failure of the housing market, it is a failure of our collective memory and our moral commitment to righting historical wrongs. Therefore, when a veteran of color is told there are no units available, or that their voucher is not welcome, it resonates with a profound sense of historical injustice. It is an insult to their personal service and a painful reminder of the unfulfilled promises made to their ancestors.
A veteran whose grandfather was denied a GI Bill-backed mortgage in the 1950s now finds himself denied an apartment because of his VA-backed voucher in the 2020s. The feeling is one of being trapped in a cycle of injustice where the rules seem to change just enough to maintain the same inequitable results.
This historical context is crucial for understanding the depth of the pain and betrayal felt by these veterans. The polite no of today carries the weight of the hostile no of yesterday. It is a reminder that the systems and attitudes that created segregated neighborhoods and a persistent racial wealth gap have not been fully dismantled. They have simply adapted, taking on new, more subtle forms.
Yet, when a black veteran is turned away by a landlord, we're not just experiencing a single act of rejection. We're experiencing the continuation of a historical pattern. The excuses may have changed from overt racism to coded language about source of income, but the outcome remains tragically the same: exclusion.
This history casts a long and dark shadow over the present. The voucher program, in a way, is a modern attempt to fulfill the promise that was broken for so many in the past. It is meant to be a tool of restorative justice, offering a pathway to stability for a new generation of veterans.
After World War II, the original GI Bill was hailed as a landmark piece of legislation that helped millions of veterans buy homes, attend college, and build middle-class lives. It's often remembered as one of America's greatest social achievements. But honestly, the benefits of this bill were not distributed equally. Due to the way it was administered at the local level, black veterans were largely shut out from its advantages, denied mortgages, and prevented from buying homes in the burgeoning suburbs.
For many veterans, especially those from minority backgrounds, the experience of housing discrimination is not just a present-day struggle. It is, in fact, a painful echo of a long and troubled history. The denial they face today is rooted in decades of discriminatory practices that have systematically excluded certain groups from the promise of homeownership and stable housing. This internal toll is the most significant consequence of housing discrimination. It is a quiet, creeping despair that can unravel a person from the inside out, making the journey toward a stable and fulfilling civilian life feel like an impossible dream. The weight of feeling worthless becomes the heaviest burden of all.
We fought for a country that we believed would honor its promises, only to find ourselves fighting a new battle for basic dignity on the home front.
Ultimately, this cycle of rejection grinds down a veteran's spirit, leaving them feeling exhausted and defeated. The hope they started with is replaced by a weary resignation, and for some, a deep-seated anger at a system that seems rigged against them.
It erodes the pride we took in our service and replaces it with a persistent sense of helplessness. The uniform that once symbolized honor now feels like a distant memory, overshadowed by the immediate stigma of the voucher in our hand.
One veteran described the humiliation of having to explain his financial situation over and over, only to be met with suspicion and condescension. He felt as though he were on trial, his entire life being judged based on the fact that he needed assistance. This process is profoundly dehumanizing.
The experience strips away the dignity that is so central to a person's well-being. A veteran who once commanded respect is reduced to pleading for consideration, forced to justify their worthiness to a leasing agent half their age.
The search for housing becomes a minefield of potential triggers, where every phone call and every meeting carries the risk of another emotional setback, making it harder to maintain the mental stability we're fighting so hard to achieve.
A veteran battling PTSD may already feel isolated from a world that doesn't understand their experiences. When that same world denies them a place to live, it validates their deepest fears of being an outcast.
This emotional weight is particularly heavy for veterans already struggling with the invisible wounds of war, such as post-traumatic stress disorder or depression. Rejection can trigger or exacerbate these conditions, reinforcing negative thought patterns that they are broken, unwanted, or a burden on society.
But when we enter the civilian world and are repeatedly denied a basic necessity like housing, this carefully constructed sense of identity begins to crumble. The constant stream of no starts to feel less like a business decision and more like a personal indictment of our character, leaving us to grapple with feelings of shame and inadequacy.
These are men and women who have been trained to be resilient, to overcome immense obstacles, and to embody strength and honor. In the military, our identity was clear and our value was affirmed through rank, responsibility, and the respect of our peers.
The practical challenge of finding an apartment is only one part of the story. The deeper wound is the emotional toll it takes on a veteran's spirit. Each rejection, no matter how politely delivered, acts as a small but powerful blow to their sense of self-worth. A stable home is the foundation upon which a life is built. It is the secure base from which a person can pursue employment, maintain health, and nurture relationships. When veterans are denied this fundamental stability, they are forced to build their new lives on a foundation of quicksand. The constant uncertainty of their housing situation disrupts every other aspect of their reintegration process. How can a veteran effectively search for a job when they do not have a permanent address to put on an application? How can they focus on their physical or mental health recovery when they are consumed by the daily stress of not knowing where they will sleep in a few weeks when their voucher expires or their time in a transitional shelter runs out? This instability creates a cascade of practical crises. Without a fixed address, even simple tasks like receiving mail become a logistical nightmare. Important documents from the VA, potential employers or family members can get lost, leading to missed appointments and lost opportunities. The lack of a stable home makes it incredibly difficult to establish the routines that are essential for mental and physical well-being. Consistent sleep, healthy meal preparation, and a quiet space for reflection are luxuries that are out of reach for someone bouncing between temporary accommodations. This perpetual state of transit keeps them in survival mode, preventing them from moving forward and beginning the real work of healing and rebuilding their lives. Furthermore, the transient lifestyle forced upon them by housing discrimination can sever crucial social and community ties. Veterans may become disconnected from their support networks, including family, friends, and fellow veterans who provide essential emotional and practical help. They may be forced to relocate to unfamiliar areas, far from their established support systems and the specific VA facilities where they have built relationships with doctors and therapists. This isolation exacerbates feelings of loneliness and despair, making them more vulnerable to the challenges they face. Community is a vital component of recovery, and when housing instability repeatedly uproots them, it denies them the chance to plant roots and foster the connections they so desperately need. The lack of a stable home is therefore not just an inconvenience, it is a critical barrier to progress that perpetuates a cycle of poverty and homelessness. A veteran cannot secure a good job without a home, but they cannot secure a home without a steady income or a landlord who will accept their voucher. They are caught in a vicious catch-22, trapped in the very instability the VASH program was designed to eliminate. The foundation of their life remains perpetually unsettled, like quicksand that pulls them back down every time they try to take a step forward. This practical chaos ensures that the promise of a new beginning remains just out of reach, a casualty of a broken and discriminatory system. These children are the silent victims, paying a steep price for a problem they did not create. The strain also takes a heavy toll on relationships. The financial pressure, emotional exhaustion, and constant uncertainty can create immense tension between spouses and partners. The fight for housing becomes the central, all-consuming focus of the family's life, leaving little room for connection, joy, or intimacy. Arguments over dwindling options and the stress of potential homelessness can fracture even the strongest bonds. A veteran's partner may feel helpless, watching the person they love spiral into depression or anger while being unable to fix the core problem. The dream of a peaceful family life, which may have sustained a veteran through their deployment, is shattered by the relentless battle for housing back home. In this way, the rejection faced by one veteran becomes a crisis for an entire family unit. The stability, security, and well-being of spouses, partners, and children are all held hostage by a discriminatory housing market. The denial of a lease is not just the denial of an apartment, it is the denial of a family's right to a normal life. It is the denial of a child's chance to thrive, and the denial of a couple's opportunity to build a future together. These unseen casualties are a heartbreaking consequence of housing discrimination, a clear sign that when we fail our veterans, we are also failing their families.
I'll never forget the pain of having to tell my 7-year-old daughter, for the third time in a year, that we had to pack our belongings again because the place we were staying was no longer available. I watched her excitement about a new school just fade into a kind of weary resignation, a childhood innocence lost to the harsh realities of our housing crisis.
Children in particular suffer deeply from this housing instability. The constant moving can lead to poor academic performance, social difficulties, and emotional distress. They are denied the simple childhood right of having their own room, a familiar neighborhood, and a steady group of friends.
I see the toll the instability takes on my daughter, the frequent school changes that disrupt her education and friendships, the lack of a safe and consistent space to play and grow, and the anxiety she picks up from my stress. My primary motivation, honestly, is to provide a better life for her, and failing to secure even a basic roof over our heads, it just feels like a monumental failure in that sacred duty.
The devastating impact of housing discrimination does not stop with the veteran. Its shockwaves extend to the people they love most. The unseen casualties in this struggle are often their children and families. For a veteran who is also a parent, the inability to secure a stable home is a source of profound guilt and anguish.
They demonstrate that when systems fail and policies prove inadequate, the unwavering commitment of faithful people can provide the support and dignity our veterans have earned and so profoundly deserve.
While government agencies and housing markets have erected walls, these communities of faith are building bridges, one relationship, one apartment, and one restored family at a time.
These grassroots efforts provide immediate, practical relief, offering a lifeline to veterans who have been caught in the frustrating limbo of the housing search, demonstrating that even small acts of focused compassion can make a world of difference. This groundswell of support is a testament to the power of a mobilized community. It is a living example of the church being what it was always called to be, a beacon of hope in a world of despair, a place of refuge for the weary, and a tireless advocate for the marginalized.
Others have cultivated relationships with Christian landlords in their congregations, creating a trusted network of property owners who are willing to look past the stigma of a voucher and see the person behind it.
The response takes many forms, tailored to the specific needs of the local community. Some churches have started funds to help veterans cover security deposits or the gap between their voucher value and actual market rents, removing the immediate financial barriers to housing.
This theological framing transforms the issue from a distant social problem into a personal spiritual responsibility, mobilizing believers to move beyond passive sympathy and into active engagement.
Christian leaders are beginning to preach from the pulpit that this is an issue of moral urgency. We're reminding our congregations that faith without works is dead, and that true worship involves opening one's hands and heart to those in need.
This response is not just about charity. It's about actually living out the core tenets of our faith in a real life-changing way. This Faith in Action movement recognizes that the crisis is not just a logistical problem, but a spiritual one, a crisis of compassion. A failure of the heart that allows a society to honor its veterans with parades and holidays while tolerating a system that denies them a home.
Across the country, churches, ministries, and faith-based organizations are refusing to look away from the plight of veterans facing housing discrimination. We are moved not by policy directives or profit margins, but by a deeply held conviction rooted in Scripture. The call to care for the vulnerable, to welcome the stranger, and to seek justice for the oppressed.
In the face of systemic failure and widespread indifference, a powerful and compassionate force is rising to meet the needs of our nation's veterans. Where government programs fall short and the housing market proves unforgiving, communities of faith are stepping into the breach. They are building more than just housing. They are building sanctuaries of hope, dignity, and restoration, proving that a compassionate, faith-driven approach can succeed where secular systems have failed, truly bringing our heroes all the way home.
Ultimately, the sanctuary model is a powerful demonstration of what it means to open wide your hand as the Scriptures command. It is a model of radical hospitality that creates a protected space for healing and growth. By taking direct ownership of the housing solution, these faith communities are making a definitive statement. Our veterans are not a risk to be managed, but cherished members of our community to be embraced.
A critical element of this model is the role of mentorship and community integration. The ministries pair newly housed veterans with mentors from the church congregation, often fellow veterans who have successfully navigated their own transition to civilian life. These mentors provide practical advice, friendship, and a crucial link to the broader community. This relational approach helps combat the profound isolation that many veterans feel, reminding them that they are not alone and that there is a community that genuinely cares about their well-being.
This model creates a stable foundation where veterans are not just housed, but are actively supported in their journey toward complete restoration, surrounded by a community that is invested in their success.
Within these sanctuary communities, the focus extends far beyond providing a physical roof. The ministries integrate services that address the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. They partner with local VA centers to bring healthcare services on-site and host regular meetings with counselors and therapists to support mental wellness. More than that, they offer spiritual guidance, optional Bible studies, and prayer groups, recognizing that for many, faith is an essential component of healing and resilience.
One such ministry in the Midwest purchased and renovated a dilapidated apartment building, transforming it into a dedicated housing community specifically for veterans and their families. This approach completely bypasses the discriminatory private market, creating a safe and welcoming environment where veterans can live among peers who understand their unique challenges and experiences, fostering a powerful sense of brotherhood and mutual support.
Among the most inspiring examples of faith in action are the church-based ministries that have developed comprehensive sanctuary models for veteran housing. These are not merely referral services, they are holistic programs that offer a spectrum of support, understanding that a key and a lease are only the beginning of the journey.
It is a long-term vision that seeks not just to house the next veteran, but to ensure that all veterans have fair and equal access to the housing of their choice. By combining compassionate service with a courageous call for justice, the church is offering a complete and powerful response to this crisis, living out its calling to be a force for healing, restoration, and righteousness in the world.
This prophetic advocacy is the crucial, forward-looking component of the faith community's response. It complements the direct service of the sanctuary models by working to create a world where such sanctuaries are no longer necessary.
By changing the narrative and fostering a culture of welcome, they are addressing the root causes of discrimination, prejudice, and fear, and replacing them with understanding and compassion.
This prophetic call challenges the Christian community to look beyond its own walls and engage with the complex, often messy work of public policy, reminding believers that their faith should influence every aspect of their lives, including their civic duties and their pursuit of a more just and equitable society for all. This call to action is about changing both laws and hearts. Churches are launching educational campaigns within their own communities to raise awareness about the hidden realities of veteran housing discrimination. They host forums featuring the personal stories of veterans, helping to break down stereotypes and build empathy among those who may have never considered the issue before. The goal is to cultivate a new perspective, transforming landlords who once rejected vouchers into partners in the solution.
This advocacy is firmly rooted in a biblical understanding of justice. Leaders point to scriptures that repeatedly call on God's people to defend the cause of the poor and the oppressed, to tear down unjust structures, and to create a society that reflects divine fairness and compassion. They frame housing discrimination not as a partisan political issue, but as a fundamental moral and spiritual one.
They are testifying at city council meetings, writing op-eds in local newspapers, and organizing their congregations to lobby elected officials for stronger source of income protection laws. Their message is clear. Charity is necessary to alleviate immediate suffering, but justice is required to dismantle the oppressive systems that cause it.
While providing direct aid is essential, many faith leaders understand that their responsibility does not end there. They are embracing a prophetic role, calling for systemic change and advocating for justice in the public square. These church leaders are using their moral authority to speak truth to power, challenging the discriminatory practices that create the housing crisis in the first place.
The journey home for a veteran should end at a welcoming front door, not at a wall of polite rejection and systemic failure. As we have seen, the housing voucher, intended as a key to a new beginning, too often fails to fit the locks of a competitive and discriminatory market. This leaves our nation's heroes facing a battle for basic dignity on the very soil they swore to protect. The emotional weight of this struggle is immense, eroding self-worth and creating a foundation of quicksand that destabilizes every other aspect of their lives. It is a crisis that harms not only the veteran, but also their families, the unseen casualties in this fight for a place to call home. This is a profound moral failure, a gap between our expressed gratitude and our practical support. But this is not where the story has to end. The conclusion is not one of despair, but one of hope and determined action. We have seen how compassion, when put into motion, can achieve what policy alone cannot. When communities of faith respond to the call, they begin to unlock the doors that have been unjustly sealed shut. This is about more than charity. It is about restoration. It is about restoring the dignity that was stripped away with each no, and rebuilding the trust that was broken by a system that failed to keep its promise. Every veteran who is welcomed into a safe and stable home is a testament to the power of a community that chooses to see a hero, not a risk. This restoration is a collaborative effort, a partnership between the veteran who has persevered, and the community that finally steps up to meet them. It requires us to look beyond the paperwork and the stereotypes and to see the individual human being who has sacrificed for our freedom. Unlocking the door to dignity means offering more than just a roof. It means offering respect, support, and a genuine sense of belonging. It is a process that rebuilds a person from the inside out, affirming their value and giving them the secure foundation they need to heal, to work, and to thrive once more as vital members of our society. This is the tangible outcome when faith is translated into compassionate action. Therefore, the path forward begins with a simple yet profound shift in perspective. We must choose to become the keymakers, the welcomers, the restorers of dignity. The problem of housing discrimination is vast, but the solution begins with a single act of welcome, repeated over and over until it becomes the new standard. For every landlord who says no, we can be the community that provides a yes. We can be the force that finally unlocks the door, allowing our veterans to step across the threshold, not just into a new home, but into a new chapter of a life defined by peace, stability, and the honor they are so richly owed.
Let us answer this sacred call not with hesitation, but with a generous and unwavering commitment. Let us open our hands, our hearts, and our homes, and in doing so, become the agents of restoration and hope that our veterans and our nation so desperately need.
For those who are not landlords, opening our hands takes other forms. It means supporting the church ministries and faith-based organizations that stand in the gap. This support can be financial, volunteering time and skills to renovate housing, or becoming a mentor to a veteran family as they settle into a new community. It means using our voices to advocate for justice, urging our local leaders to enact and enforce fair housing laws that protect against source of income discrimination. We can all play a part in creating a more welcoming environment, ensuring our communities become places where a veteran's service is honored with open arms, not closed doors. This call to open our hands is an invitation to embody the love and justice we profess. It is a chance to close the gap between our ideals and our actions, to truly make room for those who have served. The problem will not solve itself. It requires a conscious, collective decision to act.
It is a tangible expression of faith, a true ministry of hospitality.
Opening our hands means first and foremost opening our doors. For landlords and property owners within our faith communities, this is a direct and powerful call to reconsider policies that exclude voucher holders. It is an invitation to lead with compassion, to trust in the promise of a veteran's character rather than fearing the bureaucracy of their support system. It means taking a chance on a hero, offering them the same fair consideration as any other applicant. This single act of opening a door can end a veteran's desperate search, providing the stability that becomes the cornerstone for the rest of their life.
The call to action is a spiritual one, echoing the timeless wisdom of Deuteronomy 15 verse 11. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy and to the poor in your land. This ancient command speaks directly to our modern failure. It challenges us to move beyond passive acknowledgement of the problem and into a posture of active, generous, and open-handed support for our veterans who find themselves in need. It is a call to personal and communal responsibility.
The ultimate solution to this crisis lies not in a new government program or a complex policy initiative, but in the collective heart of a nation willing to respond. Our vision must be for a future where no veteran ever has to hear that their hard-earned housing support is not welcome. We must aspire to build a society where the words, "We don't take vouchers," become a relic of a less compassionate past. This future is not a distant, unattainable dream. It is a reality we can begin to construct today through our collective choices and actions. It starts with education, continues with advocacy, and is made real through countless individual acts of welcome. Imagine a community where landlords actively seek out VASH tenants, proud to offer a home to a hero. This is the future we are called to create, one built on a foundation of justice, honor, and profound gratitude. Thank you for watching this episode of Veterans Speak. We believe that awareness is the first step toward change. If this story has opened your eyes to this injustice or spoken to your heart about the need for a faith-filled response, we ask you to join us in this crucial mission. The journey to end veteran housing discrimination is long, but it is a journey we must take together. Every voice that joins the chorus, every hand that reaches out to help, and every heart that opens in compassion brings us one step closer to a future where every veteran has a place to call home. Your engagement makes a difference. To be a part of this movement of change, we invite you to connect with us further. Please take a moment to like this video as it helps this important message reach more people who need to hear it. Share it with your friends, your family, and your church community to spark conversation and inspire action. Most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more truth-filled, spirit-led content that seeks to shine a light in the darkness and mobilize the church to be a force for good in the world. Your support allows us to continue telling these vital stories and advocating for those who are too often silenced. Let us commit to making room for the ones who made freedom possible. Together, let us work and pray for the day when every veteran holds a key that fits, a key that opens a door to a home where they are not just accepted, but celebrated. Let us build a future where the welcome is unconditional and the dignity of our heroes is never in question. Visit us at elshaddaichristian.com to learn more about how you can get involved and help turn this vision into a reality for the brave men and women who have served us all.